everyone? Now recently I promised that I was going to do another Q&A to celebrate the fact I got 500 subscribers recently, and it took me a while to get there, but here I am fulfilling that promise. So without any further ado, let's jump right into it. What is your favorite movie that isn't in the English language? Unfortunately, I haven't seen that many foreign films. I definitely think I need to rectify that sometime. But I think my favorite non-English movie so far would without a doubt have to be The Raid. I still need to see The Raid 2, but The Raid is an excellent movie. Love that movie. Who's your most underrated YouTuber? I think my two most underrated YouTubers for me would be The Unusual Suspect and Icarus. Icarus is a gaming YouTuber, so he mostly does video game reviews, but he does it in a really comedic way. I love his editing, I love his charisma, and the main reason why I love his content is just that I think he's hysterical. And it's kind of a shame that most people I talk to don't really know about him. He deserves far more recognition than he gets because this guy is hilarious.
It is a very miserable day. Caddy is walking into his office.
I can't wait to start work.
Caddy can't wait to start work. Caddy walked into his office earlier and is now in his office. Caddy has sat down and is ready to start work. Oh dear, Caddy looks angry at the narrator.
Shut up!
And the same applies to The Unusual Suspect. The Unusual Suspect is a YouTuber who mostly does movie reviews. He reviews popular movies and he goes through the movie scene by scene, kind of ripping it to pieces regardless of how good the movie is. And like Icarus, The Unusual Suspect is hysterical. I mean, when I first discovered him, I just ran into his review for Spider-Man 2, and having no clue on who The Unusual Suspect was, with zero context, this was my introduction to his channel.
Barker! Barker! Stop!
Movies need to have a darker sense of humour.
Yep, that was my introduction to The Unusual Suspect, and I never stopped watching him. I think this guy is so funny that I'm embarrassed to admit that I've straight up plagiarized some of his jokes, which I'm not proud of to admit, but some of the jokes I've made on my channel in the past have been videos that have been directly stolen from some of his videos. And I'm definitely trying to shy away from that by this point, so I try to have my own original take on the humour. But I've had friends of mine who look at my original jokes and they can tell that I've definitely taken a lot of inspiration from The Unusual Suspect. Essentially what I try to do with the comedy in my YouTube channel is that I like to try to take what I love about The Unusual Suspect and apply it to my own videos while still trying to make it my own. I have to give major props to him because he's given me a lot of tips on how I can edit my videos to make them more entertaining, and if it wasn't for The Unusual Suspect, I never would have thought to do this. Thank you, Suspect. You're awesome. What are your thoughts on a Back to the Future remake or reboot? Don't do it! My friend Mr. Titus 11 has asked me a lot of questions, and since I really wanted to thank him for dedicating the amount of time to asking me so many questions, I thought why not do him a favour and try to answer every single one of them. What inspired your love for movies and your decision to start a YouTube channel? I think I've always loved movies all my life because I'm naturally a very visual person, but I think my love for movies as an art form and my desire to share it with YouTube and sort of share my opinion on how I felt about certain movies is thanks to a YouTuber called Samuel Garvin. Gavin? How do you pronounce his last name? I mostly watched him for his reviews for the Spider-Man movies, like the Sam Raimi trilogy, the Mark Webb movies. I don't really watch him anymore because he's kind of stopped making videos and I've kind of grown bored of his content, so I've moved on to other creators like Chris Stuckman. But it was Samuel that I was watching around the age of 13, and it was his channel that made me go, wow, it sounds like a lot of fun to really talk about how you felt about a movie. I want to share my opinion on YouTube. Have you ever walked out of the cinema before the end of the film? No, I haven't. I have a moral code that whenever I'm watching a movie, I like to pay respect to the filmmakers for trying, because I know how hard it is to make a movie. It's a very, very stressful industry, and it's one that seems nearly impossible to get into. And so every time I sit down to watch a movie, I just appreciate the fact that people actually went out and did it. And I appreciate it that they're trying. And so even if the movie is bad, I'll still sit down and watch the movie all the way through. So I've never walked out of a movie, but I have fallen asleep in the cinema. I was really, really young and my family took me to the cinema to see Happy Feet. I got through the first 20 minutes or so, got bored, fell asleep, and then I woke up and the movie was over. Your favourite film of all time? My favourite film of all time, without a doubt, has to be Whiplash. It's a movie I think is really intense. I love the themes behind it. I love the performances, especially behind J.K. Simmons as Terrence Fletcher. And it's honestly a movie that has impacted me so much, it's inspired me to learn how to play the drums. I'm still learning and I'm not great at it, but it's something I'm having a lot of fun doing, and I don't think I would have gotten back into playing the drums if it wasn't for the fact that I saw Whiplash. That's how good it is. It is a great movie. Love it. Your least favourite film of all time? A Good Day to Die Hard. Oh my goodness, I despise that movie. I find it to be so disrespectful to the source material. It really disrespects John McClane as a character. There's so much convoluted stuff with the story, it never even feels like a Die Hard movie. And even if I try to pretend that it's not a Die Hard movie, which is really, really easy to do because it's kind of not, it's hard to even praise it by its own merits because it's really, really boring, it's convoluted, I never ever have any idea what the hell is going on during the movie. It's really, really short, and it's just all over the place. It is a terrible, terrible movie. Do you aspire to be a movie director one day? I used to. I don't think I really do anymore, just because I don't really know how I'm going to get into that industry. And I honestly see myself more becoming a published author as opposed to being a film director. I've noticed I'm really, really enjoying writing novels and telling stories. I think I have a better vision and understanding of how I would get into that industry more than movies. So I'd probably more go towards writing as opposed to filmmaking. But if I still have that itch with filmmaking, then I probably will just be content with making short films on YouTube. I'll probably just be doing that. Most overrated film of all time for you? I don't really like using the word overrated because pretty much every movie I could think of that falls under this are movies that I just don't like as much as everybody else does, but I can still see why everybody else gets the fuss about. But I think the biggest one for me is without a doubt Batman Begins. And to an extent, The Dark Knight. I've seen both movies multiple times. I tried really, really hard to get into them. I really, really want to like them, but I just don't. I don't know if it's because I find the movies themselves to be boring or if it's for the fact I just don't care about Batman, but I have a feeling it's more towards the latter. I think the reason why I don't like the Dark Knight movies is just because I don't like Batman. I think he's a boring character, and I don't like him. I think I just angered a lot of comic book fans by saying that. Most underrated film of all time for you? I think the movie Swiss Army Man is really overlooked. I think it is a great performance by Daniel Radcliffe. It's a very, very, very original and utterly bizarre premise. It gets surprisingly philosophical, and it's just a great movie. I would also mention the movie Cube, but me saying that Cube is an underrated movie that more people need to check out would kind of be me beating a dead horse at this point because I've mentioned it so many times. I think I'm just going to ignore that movie for now, and if I really need to talk about it again, I'll just make a Redux review because I did not do that movie justice in my original review. So I just might do that instead. Would you ever consider reviewing video games on your channel? Yes, I have. Not only have I actually reviewed video games on my channel before, I've done 2 Sonic the Hedgehog reviews, both of which are really old and really, really dated, so I do not recommend watching them. But more recently, last year for Halloween, I reviewed the original Five Nights at Freddy's. A video I think is much, much higher quality. And I've got more on the way. I have a small list of video games I want to talk about, and I will probably be making videos about them. So, expect to see those. Your favourite food? Hawaiian pizza. And I think that is probably the most bold, controversial statement I have ever made on my channel ever since I publicly announced that I was a brony. I'm gonna leave now. How are you coping with the coronavirus pandemic and lockdown? It hasn't really bothered me that much. I mean, when I first heard about it, I was definitely panicking, but that panic has kind of died down at this point, and I'm just remaining vigilant, but I'm not really freaking out about it. We haven't really gone down to full lockdown at the moment. We did, but places are starting to open up again. And so sometimes I stay indoors and sometimes I go out to the park and maintain social distancing, but I need to get outside the house just for the sake of my mental health. And if the second wave of coronavirus gets worse, then, oh well, I guess I'll have to keep staying indoors for a bit longer then. Do you think cinemas will reopen in July in Australia? I think they're trying to. However, considering, like I just said, we're about to hit a second wave, there's a second wave of the virus in other states around my area. So even if they try to, I don't know they'll get very far because they might just have to close again in a few short weeks. So who knows? Can you do any impressions of characters from TVs and movies, and would you ever do an impression video on your channel? A really long time ago, I actually did do impression videos. I called them my favorite insert movie quotes, where I would take my favorite quotes and jokes and moments from certain movies. They were usually Pixar movies, and I would quote my favorite lines. I've kind of stopped doing them because I think I kind of grew out of that phase. However, since you asked, I kind of just feel like doing a couple right now because why the hell not? I mean, I enjoy doing impressions when I'm talking about moments in certain movies that I liked in my reviews, so what the hell? Why not? Let's do some. Your line's not long enough! No shit! I'm the doctor, by the way. What's your name? Rose. Nice to meet you, Rose. Run for your life! You're so thick! You're Mr. Thickety, thick face from Thick Town, Thickania. And so is your dad. Favorite video game of all time? Dead by Daylight. Least favorite video game of all time? Dead by Daylight. It's complicated, okay? Your favorite and least favorite animated films of all time? Definitely Inside Out and Zootopia as my favorites. As my least favorites, Shark Tale. Because that movie is an abomination upon humanity and I don't even like acknowledging that movie exists. What's your most anticipated film of 2020? Since pretty much anything I could have been excited for has been pushed back until next year or later, I honestly think that the thing I'm most excited for this year is the fact that they're doing a rerun of Die Hard in December this year. And I have never seen Die Hard in cinemas or on the big screen before, and so I would love to do that, so I'm gonna go see Die Hard in cinemas. And it's gonna be awesome. So I'm honestly really looking forward to that. Are you a James Bond fan? Not really. I mean, I definitely heard of him, but I hadn't even seen any of his movies up until recently, when I finally watched a small handful of them just so I could understand what all the fuss is about. I don't know if I remember every single one I saw at the top of my head, but from memory what I saw was Dr. No, Goldfinger, For Your Eyes Only, and Skyfall. If I was to see any more, I would probably watch GoldenEye and Casino Royale next, because I heard that those are some of the best ones. I kind of get what all the fuss is about, but they're just not really for me. They're kind of fun to watch and put on, but I'm just not really super into the series. I'm much more of a Mission Impossible guy. What's your favorite band? We'll carry on, and though you're dead, God, believe me, your memory will carry on, and dead body hide can contain it, the anthem won't explain it. If that doesn't answer your question, I don't know what will. Yeah, if you didn't get the memo already, my favorite band of all time is, without a doubt, My Chemical Romance. The reason why My Chemical Romance is currently my favorite band of all time is because I really resonate with their music. I think they have a lot of really powerful messages in their songs. They're not afraid to talk about things that other bands don't really discuss. When I've had bad days and I've felt really down or really emotional, A lot of the time, I turn to My Chemical Romance. I mean, when you're feeling hurt emotionally, there are so many songs that they've written for you that can help you cope with it. One of my favorite examples is I'm Not Okay, I Promise, which is in their album 3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge. And I've also listened to pretty much all of their music. Not all of it, I've listened to a very large percent of it, but there's still another small percentage that I need to complete, but I actually want to hear the rest of their music. I want to make sure I've heard every single song that they've written because I love this band that much. So I haven't listened to Conventional Weapons all the way through just yet, but some of the few songs I have listened to it are absolutely beautiful, such as The Light Behind Your Eyes. My goodness, that song is phenomenal. I really need to listen to the rest of this album because it's sensational. Their first album, You Brought Me Your Bullets, I Brought You My Love, is really, really great, if a little bit screamy, but I still enjoy it. 3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge is where their content gets really, really good. I love 3 Cheers. The Black Parade is my absolute favourite album of all time. And Danger Days, while not quite as good, I still quite liked it. I am planning on making a dedicated video kind of reviewing My Chemical Romance and going into much more detail on why I love their music. And so that's pretty much all I'm going to say here. And if I go into any detail on why I love the Black Parade so much specifically, we're going to be here all day. So we're just kind of going to move on. What do you think of Doctor Who Series 11 and 12, and how long do you think the show will continue to be on air for? I have no idea. Knowing Doctor Who, it could be another 10 decades. Or we could be in the last few seasons and we could only have 1 or 2 Doctors left. It's incredibly unpredictable. As for how I feel about season 11 and 12, I don't really know because I haven't seen those seasons just yet. I'm still halfway through Matt Smith's run, so I need to finish that and Peter Capaldi's era first. Favourite Doctor from Doctor Who and why?
Well, that's the question.
I demand to know who you are! I don't know!
For me, it's a toss-up between Christopher Eccleston and David Tennant. Christopher Eccleston, not just because he's the first, I think he's a very underrated Doctor, he's a very overlooked Doctor, not many people sort of talk about him, which is sad, because he's one of my favourite Doctors so far. I think he's very charismatic, I think he's very funny, very cheerful, and he's just a very, very entertaining Doctor. And then there's David Tennant, because David Tennant is David Tennant. He's really funny, he's really quirky, he's really charismatic, he's really entertaining. David Tennant is lightning in a bottle. I can't really put my finger on why David Tennant is such a great Doctor. You're just gonna have to watch the show for yourself to really get it. The most emotional Doctor Who episode for you. Definitely Doomsday. For reasons I'm not gonna get into because I don't want to spoil it. Favourite and least favourite Doctor Who episodes. I think my favourite episode for Doctor Who would have to be Blink, as well as Midnight, and to an extent Dalek and The Empty Child, two-parter. There's a lot of episodes in those first few seasons that I absolutely adore, especially Blink. Blink is a fantastic episode. I love the concept of the Weeping Angels, and my god, those last 5 minutes are utter perfection. For my least favourite episode, it's probably the obvious choice, Love and Monsters, just because the Absorbaloff is a really ridiculous monster that I just can't take seriously. And the ending is just, it's kind of disturbing, honestly. I just don't like that episode. Are you a brony? Yes, I am. And if the question is more, are you still a brony? Even though I still haven't finished season 9 just yet, I still am a fan of the show. I stand by pretty much everything I praised about the show in my original review. So nothing has changed. I still love the show. What do people find so interesting about My Little Pony? I think most bronies have their own reasons for loving the show, but I think mine, aside from the great overarching character arcs and how the characters are really, really likable, and the adorable art direction, is just the fact it's a very sweet, innocent, uplifting show. It's just a very, very delightful show. There's a very strong sense of innocence to it, and since it's so lighthearted, it can be a great form of escapism considering the world is a really, really dark place. That, and there's also the tons and tons and tons of other reasons I mentioned in my hour-and-a-half long review, so if you want more reasons, go watch that. Do you have any interest in watching a horror movie? Yes, I have. In the past, I have been really, really adamant about not watching horror movies because, honestly, I was a complete wimp, but I've definitely grown out of that. I've been trying to branch in my horizon, I think is a way of describing it, and I've definitely watched quite a few horror movies at this point. I've watched some of the really, really big ones, and yes, before you ask, I am open to reviewing some of them, so I might do it for October. But yeah, I can't name them all at the top of my head, but here's a list of horror movies that I've seen so far. What happened to Determinate? For those who don't know, Determinate was a Star Wars short film that I tried to make a few years ago. It was essentially just a lightsaber duel, and that was going to be it. And I kind of cancelled it without really announcing that I cancelled it because I didn't think anybody cared. No one really paid much attention to it. And the reasons why I cancelled it was because, first off, I didn't even have time to finish filming it. It's an unfinished product. I'm really not happy with how the video turned out. The choreography was really poorly put together, and I can't really film it anymore. I can't go back and redo it because I have since moved far away from the area that I shot that in. So if I was to bring Determinate back, I'd probably just redo it from the ground up. I'd probably pick another person to do it. I would pick a different location. I would make sure the choreography is much, much better. But as for this original Determinate, it's a lost cause. But hopefully, maybe one day I can replace it with something that's actually good. So don't worry about Determinate going away. It's all for the greater good.
The greater good.
What are your 3 favourite films of all time? My opinion keeps changing every few months, but as of now, my top 3 favourite movies in descending order is Whiplash, Terminator 2 Judgment Day, and Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2. Those would be my top 3. What are the 3 worst films you've seen? I've already mentioned A Good Day to Die Hard. That movie was an abomination. And another movie that I absolutely can't stand is Cube 2 Hypercube. I have praised the original Cube to high heaven, and Cube 2 Hypercube is pretty much the exact opposite of the first movie. It does everything that the first movie did well and does it wrong. It's essentially what the movie would have been like if it didn't work. I hate it, but I don't hate it as much as A Good Day to Die Hard because I've already watched it more times and I wouldn't really complain if somebody decided to put it on. I just don't like it because it's disrespectful to the original movie. I'm not sure what my 3rd worst movie of all time would be, but let's just say Shark Tale, just because... Actually, no, come to think about it, the Emoji Movie. Yeah, let's go with that, the Emoji Movie. That movie was atrocious, an abomination. What was your hardest video you've made? Definitely the My Little Pony video, and the main reason why was because I was essentially publicly announcing that I really liked the show, and I really had a hard time trying to figure out how to word my arguments to describe why so many people, myself included, like the show, without sounding completely weird. And that's why that video took me over half a year to make. It took me literally months and months to make that video. But the work definitely paid off because it is still personally my favourite video that I've made. There are definitely things about it that I would change if I made it today. There's a few points that I missed, and there's a few things I said that could have been worded a little bit better, but all in all, I'm still very happy with how the video turned out. What was the easiest video you've made? Definitely the announcement for my Q&A videos. Those ones were really quick to make because I essentially just put my camera in front of my face and said, "Hi guys, I'm doing a Q&A, ask your questions, ask as many as you want, don't do this or that, you have this amount of weeks to do it, and then I'll see you soon." And then I just kind of quickly edited it together and then put it up on YouTube. That versus a video that I spent ages and ages scripting and then setting myself to film that takes multiple sessions because my camera can only hold about an hour of footage at a time. And then the amount of time I need to sit down and edit and then render, which usually takes another 10 hours. And then uploading all that versus the videos where I just simply say, "Hi guys, I'm doing a Q&A." So definitely my Q&A announcement videos have been the easiest videos for me to make. They're also the most disposable. So that kind of goes to show that the videos that I work the hardest on are the videos that end up becoming my favourites. And that's all the questions that I'm going to be answering. Thank you all so much for participating. Stay tuned till my next video, but until then, see you later.